move now to the Kevin Spacey story. This is about, obviously, the Hollywood actor himself. He wept in court as he was cleared of all charges in his sexual assault trial in London. The jurors at Southwark Crown Court returned not guilty verdicts for 9 sexual offence charges relating to 4 men between the years of 2001 and 2013. He said he was grateful to the jury as he thanked them for their deliberations, and those deliberations took 12 hours to conclude. So he was acquitted of 7 counts of sexual assault, 1 count of causing a person to engage in sexual activity without consent, and 1 count of causing a person to engage in penetrative sexual activity without consent. Giving evidence, he fought back tears. He said his world exploded when other allegations first emerged against him. He also went on to say, there was a rush to judgment, and before the first question was asked or answered, I lost my job, I lost my reputation, I lost everything in a matter of days. Well, joining me now is Mo Kelly, US correspondent. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, absolute pleasure. I know you're in Los Angeles at the moment right now. Just in terms of this verdict, obviously Kevin Spacey relieved, in tears. He's been acquitted of this. What are your thoughts this morning?
I was somewhat surprised, but I thought that it could be a possibility, if only because Kevin Spacey, to his credit, went on the stand, was willing to tell his story, to allow jurors to hear him, to see him, to review him, and get a better sense of who he was, whether he was putting on a performance or whether he was sincere. I think that helped him in the long run. But I would also make the distinction, and I think a lot of people will, that he was found not guilty. That does not mean that he was innocent. And sometimes, too, and Kevin Spacey did say this, people do make up their minds, and sometimes it makes it very difficult for people to see him a different way, regardless of the verdict.
So can you just clarify that? Because he was found not guilty, so therefore he is not guilty. What do you mean he is not innocent?
Well, if you're found not guilty, it means that the prosecution, at least in American jurisprudence, the prosecution did not make it meet its burden of proof. It does not mean necessarily that you have been exonerated. You know, Robert Blake, the late actor, was found not guilty, but I don't know if he was exonerated. O.J. Simpson, Bill Cosby, his verdict was set aside. So there are all sorts of legal distinctions that, although you may walk free and the burden of proof may not have been met, there is a distinction, because we say, at least in the United States, that you are found not guilty, that it does not mean necessarily that you are innocent.
I mean, certainly in this country, for me, not guilty means not guilty. So therefore, he walks, as you say, a free man. I mean, just in terms of the impact to his life, he says, I lost everything. So there were accusations levelled. These went back many, many years. And in fact, in some cases, it was very difficult, I think, for the jurors to disentangle the truth, what people could remember, because it dated back such a long time. And just in terms of the impact to this man's life, I mean, should he have lost all his work in terms of the way that Hollywood ditched him? People here, he was artistic director of the Old Vic here. He says he lost everything. Now, whatever happened to innocent until proven guilty?
I think that's a great point, but innocent until proven guilty is actually the shortened form of innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. It does not mean that you are above losing your reputation, your stature.
Why? Because there are allegations?
For example, in my job, there can be allegations against me. I can get arrested and be fired from my job for just bringing infamy to my company. So there are a lot of distinctions in the sense of, just because you may not be found guilty of a crime does not mean that people may want to work with you even after the trial.
But that seems incredibly unfair. You've got a person in a position of enormous responsibility. You've got young people who may be doing this for nefarious reasons, that they see fame and fortune. And he went on, and I think this is absolutely paramount. He said, in a position of like mine, it's very difficult to know who to trust. And I think many people who are in highly paid positions in the public eye, would also concur with that.
No, I agree with you. It is unfair because the burden was on Kevin Spacey to prove his innocence. And also, when you're accused of something, it's hard to unring that bell. I agree with them in that respect. but also at the same time, just because you're found not guilty in a court of law doesn't mean that people will want to work with you in the future. For example, I mentioned O.J. Simpson. He is still a toxic individual to this day, even though he was found not guilty of killing 2 people.
Just in terms of that, there are people in Hollywood who are saying that actually he should never have been cancelled. The studios were wrong. Just in terms of how he rebuilds his life now, should the studios say, look, we were wrong, we got this wrong, you're not guilty, you are now welcome to come back? Remember, of course, this is a man who was known for winning an Oscar, for being in House of Cards, which was a hugely successful series as well.
Well, I guess that's up to the studios to decide. I think the studios are more about making money than making amends, and I think that's true with just about any actor. And whether Kevin Spacey has a degree of value to the studios, that will dictate whether they continue to work with him in the future. People have been accused of far less and never returned really to Hollywood. The names like Mel Gibson, he's still working, but on a much lower level, was never accused of sexual assault. Hollywood has a long and sordid history of not working with people. I wouldn't say being blackballed, but not working with people whose brands may be toxic in nature. And although being toxic is not criminal, it is an excuse, if you will, to not make a way and place for those actors.
Just looking through the details of this case, Spacey, and I think your point is really valid, which he was prepared to give evidence himself. He said he told the court he shared an intimate consensual moment with a former aspiring actor who claimed the star drugged him and performed a sex act on him whilst he was asleep in his flat. He went on to say he had a somewhat intimate relationship with another complainant but denied assaulting him in a violent, aggressive and painful way. And the allegations by a man he met in a West End theatre in the mid-2000s were madness. He said the incident never happened. Now, the point is, if you're saying that you're saying essentially that he has been found not guilty, it doesn't mean he's not innocent. What more can he do? He says these are not true. He's gone to a court of law. He has been found not guilty. So therefore, we need to be guided by that and say this man is innocent.
Well, if it were me and I were Kevin Spacey, the next logical step is to file a lawsuit of defamation of character against these individuals. If he has enough evidence or something which would indicate that those accusations were made in bad faith, then he would be compelled, if only to further cement the idea that not only was he not guilty, but he was wrongly targeted, which is also something very different. I think that's about the only recourse which he has available to him, because life is not fair, but being unfair is a fact. And Kevin Spacey, a lot of times Hollywood will make a decision about a person and not look back.
How much of this is sort of embroiled in homophobia? Because he was forced to come out, he was forced to admit he was gay in the middle of this. And I just wonder whether this underpins the way the studios reacted, the way the media industry reacted.
I think it's more a reflection of the media industry as opposed to the studios, because if you worked in Hollywood in any sense, gay and lesbian people are everywhere at every level in Hollywood. So I think it would be kind of counterintuitive to be anti someone gay when most of Hollywood or much of Hollywood is actually gay.
So you say there's no homophobia in this at all?
No, I would not say that. I'm saying that I would point to some other reason, not necessarily homophobia, because there are just simply too many gay people to say that they dislike gay people.
So I'm just going back to this whole point that he's been found not guilty. You say that that doesn't mean that he's innocent, but also just in terms of the evidence, I mean, it was a star-studded cast that appeared at this trial, and one of the main accusers claimed that he was groped by the actor when he was driving to Sir Elton John's Windsor home for the White Tie and Tiara Ball in 2004 and 2005. Now, Sir Elton John gave evidence. He said Spacey actually only came to that ball, to that gala once, and that was in 2001, and he flew in on a private jet. So clearly that was wrong. That evidence was incorrect.
Okay, the evidence may be incorrect, but it doesn't mean that Hollywood owes something to Kevin Spacey. If he feels that Hollywood owes him, then he should sue for his worth or a violation or breach of contract.
It just seems incredibly unfair to me. There are spurious allegations made against you because you're a high-profile figure, and then you get unceremoniously dumped. That is not fair. It's not right.
There is nothing fair about Hollywood. There is absolutely nothing fair. If you presuppose that someone deserves a job in Hollywood or deserves a chance or deserves to have a starring role in a movie, I would disagree with you. There is absolutely nothing fair in Hollywood, and I'm quite sure that Kevin Spacey would tell you the same.
What more would it take? I mean, I'm just looking back. He's now been cleared of wrongdoing both in a criminal court, as we know, here in the United Kingdom, 2 court cases in the US, 1 criminal and 1 civil. How much more can this man take?
Well, I would expect him, if I were him, I would advise him to very gently and slowly reintegrate himself into the Hollywood scene, do some interviews, do a sit-down expose with a major network, and be able in long form to tell his story. Now, there is a question regarding whether he has any NDAs, non-disclosure agreements with any other accusers that have not come forward. And it's not only what we do know, it's what we don't know in the sense of other potential accusers who may come forward. We saw this with Bill Cosby. I always want to keep it relative to people in the entertainment industry. Just because you may not know everything to the totality of the situation, but if I were Kevin Spacey, I would do a goodwill tour and start telling my version of the story early and often, and then softening the idea of his coming back to Hollywood.
Mo, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for your time. That's Mo Kelly, US correspondent based in Los Angeles.